Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major developments in Rostermania last night with plenty of new free agents created, especially by the Boston Breach and the Minnesota Rokkr. Big names going into the free agency market here, and also a massive rumour around Clayster potentially being Boston's #1 target for the NAR position next season, but not to be paired with Awakening, but to be paired with Beans instead, with Awakening apparently getting dropped from the team. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. So last night was the contract extension deadline at 11:59 Pacific time. So as of recording this video, that's roughly 2 hours ago. And there's genuinely been less action on Twitter than I thought there would be, because a couple of teams have confirmed what they're planning to do. There are plenty of new free agents, but there are plenty more free agents that will officially be a thing now that we haven't had confirmation of yet. And apparently, even up until the very latest minutes, even some of the players don't fully know what's going on. So there's a lot still to come on this, but there's still plenty to get into today regardless. Firstly, this from the Boston Breach confirming that Nero and Vivid are gone from the organisation. Today we're parting ways with two players, people that have been instrumental in building the foundation of Boston Breach. This is, in my opinion, somewhat unfortunate from the Boston perspective that it ended in this manner. These guys, I thought, on their ceiling potential, were a very solid SMG duo. Vivid this year was up and down. He was in the team, out of the team, in the team, dropped again for the team at the end of the season. Nero, though, I thought was very good. This guy is super impactful when he's on his game, and I thought was a massive part of their success in the early part of the season when they actually had some decent results. When they got rid of him, I never thought they really replaced that aggression that he brings, and I definitely think he can be a viable piece elsewhere. The bridges, though, with Nero especially, were burned at the end of the year. There was all this talk about how he'd had to pay himself to get out there to Major 5. He wasn't paid as like a substitute for the team to actually even attend that event. He played in challenges, but not at the Boston Breach Academy, and I think, it seems like Vivid also felt similar frustrations, and we see Vivid's tweet actually here: appreciate Boston for the last year and a half, hate the way it ended, right? And you can't blame him, because he was in, he was out, he was in, he was out again, and not a happy man as a result. Nero also tweeted as well: thanks to everyone on Boston for the last couple of years, blessing to play under you guys, thanks for taking a chance on me. With that being said, unrestricted free agents for next season. So yeah, I know that it didn't end so well with those two guys in Boston, and if things had gone differently, I still feel like a player like Nero could be a very valuable asset to that team. But they're going to go for a bit of a rebuild, and to our understanding, Boston have been one of the most, if not the most active team in Rostermania. They're not the team holding everything up. That's arguably Toronto, because people are trying to figure out, can we get Scrappy, can we not? Is CleanX going to be sold? Is Insight going to be sold? And once FaZe and OpTic and Thieves figure that out, then things will start moving. But outside of those guys, Boston have apparently been very active indeed in having conversations with plenty of different players. These are all the players that, as of last night, had contract extension options. Many of these will have been extended by their respective organisations. aBeZy, Simp, Cellium, for example, potentially Slasher, we'll see about that. But a lot of these other players are now officially going to be unrestricted free agents. We haven't had that many confirmations for many of these teams, the likes of Florida, even the likes of OpTic, right, as to what they're planning to do with these guys. It is possible that some of them get extended, not intending for the organisation to keep them on the starting team, but rather because they think they can sell those guys. And we'll get on to what Minnesota decided to do with their players, because they have now officially confirmed it. So all that's been going on, and there's even been this discussion. So these are the players that don't have contract extension options, such that they will be free agents. Now, Kismet might be a free agent for approximately 5 minutes after he becomes a free agent next weekend, when the official free agency period begins, and then they re-sign him 5 minutes later to the subliners, which is probably what's going to happen. But there has been, Jacob L and the rotation both replied with something like this that implies that Kismet, and if he's a smart guy, which he is, he will at least be having conversations with other teams just to ensure that whenever he probably does re-sign a new deal with the subliners in a week or so's time, he can get a bit more cash in the bag type thing, which you would certainly think he deserves after his recent performance. So as of last night, Jacob L tweeted out, some players still don't know if they're being extended or released. Either the teams took so long to figure out, or some players straight up weren't informed. And that was seemingly the discussion there, that some players and teams weren't really sure what they were doing, and therefore weren't really telling some of their players, even as Ronnie says here on Reddit, kind of saying that pretty much on, let's say, OpTic and FaZe, guys like Slasher and Ghosty, they're in a bit of a tug of war right now for potential replacements there. So those guys haven't necessarily been informed. However, it's, the deadline has come and gone. So So something has to have happened. Either they are free agents now or they're not and they got extended, but as of recording, we don't quite yet know. We're going to find out, I'm sure, later on today. So also Boston have been in the discussion of having conversations with a lot of players. I heard a few days ago now that they had talks with Envoy. No, I don't think Envoy's going to go to Boston. I think it's going to get better offers, better options, but even the fact that, Boston are talking to Envoy to try and potentially make a relationship there happen is indicative that they're trying to be a contender, because next year, the subliners, they're the world champions. OpTic, FaZe, Thieves. You would expect that to be the top 4. Toronto should be there, but unfortunately, if they're making budget cuts, if they're getting rid of CleanX and Intite or something, and it's going to be Scrappy plus 3 rookies, they're probably not going to be contending particularly regularly with that top 4. So it's up to another team to try and step up to the plate. Is that going to be Minnesota Rokkr? Potentially, especially if they partner with G2, they can actually form a serious team, get Slasher, get Simp, I don't know, form a pretty good squad over there. Or is it going to try and be Boston? Are they the ones trying to take that next step up to being a proper contender? Because they tried a few changes this past season, didn't really work, but apparently one of their plans is to get rid of Awakening. Sources say that Awakening is being released by the Boston Breach. The strange thing about this is that last night they officially released Vivid and Nero, right? But they didn't release Awakening in that tweet. So, and also Sidious Intel says he can confirm this. So it seems like this is going to be happening, which is actually rather interesting. And Awakening, but the thing is, Awakening hasn't tweeted, oh yeah, unrestricted free agent, just like Nero and Vivid have, because it's a similar situation there. He's tweeted this instead. So I don't know what's going on with Boston on this one with Awakening, whether he has been released or not. But I mean, last night, very close to the deadline, sources say that he was going to be released. So he probably is getting released. And there's some more reasons why that might be the case here in a second. Primarily because Beans, who would be the other option for that particular role, is on a 2+1 deal. So Awakening was on a 1+1. They, this was the end of his first year. They could extend him or not. They apparently have decided not to. Beans, though, on a 2+1. So he's guaranteed for another year. So if you're 50-50 between the two of them, you might as well keep the one that you've got guaranteed on a contract, because otherwise you're going to have to try and sell Beans on or put him on the bench for a year, which maybe isn't the way to go. So we'll get back to the Boston thing in a second. First of all, though, we've got to discuss the Minnesota Rokkr. Funny that they actually mention explicitly Rostermania in their update here. It's kind of rare that you'll see an organization use this term, which isn't really an official term, is it, for the period, but they use it in the graphic as well. But they say quite clearly, Minnesota Rokkr will not be exercising the second-year team options on the player contracts for Attach, Cammy, Bance, and Afro. That's the entire team. A full squad wipe here for Rokkr again. Fame's contract is expiring, so there's no option to extend on that one. And they will become unrestricted free agents officially when their contracts expire July the 2nd. So yesterday, or pretty much today, is the deadline where the teams have to choose to extend or not. And then 1 week's time, they become free agents and they can re-sign new deals when the new season begins. But as they say, we plan to evaluate all reasonable options, which kind of sounds like they're looking for options that fall within their price range that they'd actually be willing to pay during Rostermania, including the potential for some of those players to re-sign. So I think that's the key point here, that it's not guaranteed that none of those 4 players play for Rokkr next season. I would expect them to try and re-sign a couple of those guys potentially on lower salary deals, but if they get better offers, that's where they're probably going to go. So Attach, unrestricted free agent for the 2024 season, same across the rest of the team as well. I also do wonder quickly, because we have had a bit of action here between Beans and Bance over the last few days, and I do look at that Boston team and wonder whether Bance in there from an SMG perspective can actually be a viable option. I'm not so sure that I like it, but we'll get into that in a second, because I'm not sure Clayster, if he is going to be there, wants to have effectively 3 rookies, very young guys alongside him, because when he's been with that situation before in the subliners 2021, he got frustrated that he had to do it all. And let's get into that then. So more sources say last night the Boston Breach are targeting Clayster for their 2024 roster. I'm sure they must have had conversations with Clay. We believe that Boston have had conversations with a load of players over the last couple of weeks. So this is not exactly guaranteed. And Jacob L says, look, they've had conversations with a lot. It's not for sure that Clay's going to go there, but it does make a lot of sense. If there's any team in the CDL that needed the leadership and experience of a guy like Clayster, Boston was that team. And maybe Dens and Zed, they look back on last year's off season and think, you know what, we probably should have got Clay, because I thought personally personally, Clay was going there last year. They had a choice between Clay and Zinni. That was their choice. And as it turned out, it worked out pretty well, right? Because Zinni comes in, he gets the beautiful moment to retire in front of the home crowd and all that, and it was really nice. But fundamentally, Zinni leaving did kind of mean that the team had low leadership, no experience, and maybe getting Clay in hindsight would have been the correct decision, and therefore, that's probably what they're going to try and do. So, you know, they'll probably have had talk to Clayster. No guarantees it's going to be happening, though. And immediately as a result of this, Clay comes out with all sorts of tweets. So this guy knows how to farm impressions, and he knows what's good for him as well, because he knows that if people are talking about him potentially joining an organization, he comes through, makes a big song and dance about it, then other teams are going to be like, damn, they're looking to sign Clay, maybe we should look at Clay as well. Now, the thing is with signing Clay, yes, he's been, I think, pretty good this last season. Okay, he's not the same Clayster that he was in 2015 Advanced Warfare when he was the best AO in the game, but I still think he's a very good and valuable asset. The issue is with Clay that you never really know, is this upcoming year going to be his last year? If he does compete again this year, as it seems like he is very much keen to, is it going to be his last year? Has he got 2 more in the tank? Is he just going to one day turn up and fall off? Like, you never really fully know. So I think as an organization, I would be a little bit concerned about getting Clay into the team. But I think for Boston, even if this is Clayster's last year competing, I still think he's worth the risk in going for because of what Clay can help the other guys to become. You look at a team of, you know, Snoopy and Beans potentially, with potentially one more rookie player as well. Clay is going to help those guys so much. You look at the 2021 season, Hydra in Cold War wasn't anything spectacular. He's very good, but he wasn't Rookie of the Year Hydra in 2021, was he? Like, it was Insight, it was Standy, and Hydra was pretty good, but I'm sure Clay helped him improve over that year to become the player that Hydra is today, and I think Clay can help in a similar manner to some of these other guys as well. So Clay turns the stream on, and actually says on stream last night that this whole Boston rumor was totally news to him, as if he had no idea that this is a possibility. So not sure I fully buy it from Clay. This guy absolutely knows how to play the game, but I will just share this for you guys.
I'm going to say this one time. That tweet was news to me, boys. Let's get it. Rostermania is crazy this year, bro. Everything changes every 30 minutes. Nothing's set in stone. Not like, you know, people saying, oh, they're targeting me. I hit up the management. I'm like, damn, y'all are targeting me. Let's go. I'm not even kidding, bro. That's not a joke. If they are actually interested, then hey, that'd be lit. But it's weird that the intel accounts would tweet out stuff like that, like make it seem like it's like set in stone type deal, when it is most certainly not. It kind of is a double-edged sword too, in the way that it hurts and it helps me a little bit. I think it could help in the way that it shows interest in me, and other teams like, oh, there's interest in him, so maybe I could raise the price on myself. But on the other hand, teams that I am talking to and kind of have shown interest in me, like past step 1, we'll see that and be like, oh, he's going somewhere else. We got to figure out another plan, you know?
So I think it would be good for Clay to keep his options open, but if he's going to be an unrestricted free agent, as he is from Vegas, then I think Boston is a step up in terms of taking it serious as well. Like, Boston are like a serious organization. They have, you know, they have a facility, right, where Clay can actually go and play from, rather than playing from home, where he had to for Vegas, which obviously wasn't ideal. They're an organization that's trying to mix it up with the big boys, and unless he gets an offer from FaZe, I think Boston might be the best option that he has out there, all things considered. So what team would they build? And Awakening getting dropped is very interesting, but to me, you have to keep one of Awakening or Beans, and as we can see here, Beans on a 2+1, and I'm not so sure which one I'd prefer anyway, to be honest. Like, Awakening is a solid player, but there have been some questions around him. The fact that when he teamed with Skies, all the debate was on Florida 2021 in Cold War that, well, you can't have both Awakening and Skies. Skies then leaves, wins 3 events of the World Championship this year, and then again we have conversations this year that, oh yeah, you can't have Awakening and Beans on the same team, doesn't work. So maybe there's a common denominator there, and I think Beans, for a rookie season, did very well. Like, it's pretty rare that rookies come in and absolutely fry. I mean, it happens, Scrappy, Simp, and others, but usually it's like with Hydra, they have a decent first season, but then they kick on, and I think Beans can be a player in that category, and clearly the guys over there like him a lot. So choosing Beans over Wake is definitely a hot take, but I can understand it, and also from like a communication attitude perspective, I think that Beans, he brings a lot of energy, right? Like, when that team is going to be firing on all cylinders, Clay and Beans are going to be roaring. Like, there's going to be a lot of energy energy in there. And also sometimes Clay has a tendency, if things aren't going so well, to, shut down a little bit. We heard it with the Vegas comms this season. I think if there's one guy that could potentially bring the energy back into Clay, Beans is going to be a valuable asset there. So I actually kind of like the way that works. The SMG department would be very interesting. I think Snoopy, if they can keep him around, that's a massive win. And I think that with Clayster's guidance, Snoopy going to become a real force. You then have to wonder who the fourth player is. And actually, credit to Ronnie. He put together a team similar to this the other day, where he had Clay, Beans, Snoopy, and then Standy. And I was thinking about Standy as well. Could bring some slaying, played with Clay on Vegas. And I think this could be a pretty reasonable and viable option. But I think the Boston will continue to have conversations and keep the door open, because we don't know what's going to happen with Ghosty. He was on the Boston team before, playing with Doug right on the Academy roster. Clay and Ghosty as an AR duo, that sounds pretty interesting as well, because then Ghosty could get back to that slaying role that he did so well in challenges before stepping into a more tricky position that he had to play on OpTic. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. That is only scratching the surface of the amount of talking points we're going to have over the coming days here. Plenty more free agents I'm sure will be announced today. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.